Few sore heads around the country this morning, and probably several frustrated heads across the League of Ireland after last night's round of results. I'm Aidan O'Hara, and I'm joined on independent.ie by Aidan Fitzmaurice, who was at the Brandywell for the 1-1 draw between Derry and Sligo Rovers. And Aidan, it's a game Derry probably wondering how they didn't win, but yet could easily have lost.
Yeah, hugely frustrating game performance tonight for Derry. Basically, they were quite good in the first 10 minutes, and the last 10 minutes, everything in between was quite poor. They were just slack, lots of possession, lots of the ball, just didn't do an awful lot with it. Really didn't work the Sligo goalkeeper at all. Very frustrating night. It probably is 2 points dropped for Derry, given that Bohemians won. And it was a night for them with Shamrock Rovers dropping points again. It was a night for Derry to press home that and make something of the advantage, but they could have lost. I suppose summed up the night, in the first half when they had a goal, Jimmy McGonigal scored, but the referee blew to bring it back for an earlier foul. Didn't quite play the advantage. He seemed to blow just as the ball was struck. Now, in fairness for you, Higgins, the manager, did say after he went to speak to the referee, and the referee admitted he got it wrong, which is quite rare. Rory is quite, I think sometimes you need honesty. He said, look, the decision went against him, but the referee at least put his hand up and got it wrong. We're all human, but it was a mistake. That goal should have stood. He shouldn't have brought it back. But even with that, I think just something about Derry tonight just wasn't. They weren't at it. I think they need the break. A lot of players missing. They look quite tired tonight. Didn't really have any conviction in their passing. Hopefully, for their point of view, when they do come back after the break, they've probably 5 first teamers out injured at the moment. If they get some of them back, they will be stronger. But it was just a night and a game to forget for Derry.
Yeah, I mean, even after they got that equaliser, Sligo suddenly opened them up again. Sligo probably be a bit frustrated that they didn't leave it to 3 points.
They will, and again, difficult night for Sligo. And again, I think in the aftermath there's going to be a bit of talk about the pitch, that the artificial pitch here in Derry, not the most popular with other managers. Derry, Sligo lost Lucas Branifak in the first half. Didn't seem to be an injury. He just seemed to catch his studs in the turf. Carlos Sullivan come on for him, had a similar injury, so they lost 2 players. So I think again, one of the debates is going to come up about the actual pitch in Derry advantage or disadvantage. Sligo really could have won it. After Derry equalised, Sligo went right up again at the other end, and Bogdan Bashtok had a chance. It was basically him and Brian Maher. He didn't even hit the target. He sent it wide. It was summed up at the night. Really, just not a great spectacle. Kick-off time didn't help again. A few people in Derry saying that 7:45 didn't really help. They would have preferred maybe a 3 p.m. or 5 p.m. kick-off. That even though it was technically a sellout, there was quite a few empty seats. But maybe people were at the parade or in town. They were in a comfy pub somewhere in town, and they stayed and watched it on telly rather than coming to the game. So just it could have been a good night for Derry, as I said, with Shamrock Rovers dropping points again, and Bohemians nearly slipping up, even though they got over the line at home to UCD. Just a night to forget really for Derry. So we'll look to be sharper when they come back from the break.
Yeah, and that draw gave Bohs a chance to extend their lead, which they did. They seemed to get a bit of a wake-up call in the first half with an early goal, and then missed penalty just before half-time. But second half turnaround is probably important to keep the momentum going in front of a home crowd. Patrick's Day, feel-good factor there. It's been an incredible start for them.
It has, yeah, and I think that was a game that Declan is a clever manager. He knows how to run, and he would have been aware that everyone going to that game tonight from a Bohemians point of view was expecting to win. Fans were looking at it again. It's a party atmosphere. People are at the parade. People are in good spirits going. Bohs have been in great form, and UCD just have that potential to cause a surprise as they did when they took the lead. So Bohs are first blows when they concede a goal. Second they have their own chance to Slough, and they miss a penalty. It looked like it was going to be just one of those nights, but again, Bohs did turn it around. I think they will again be glad of the break. I haven't seen the goal yet, so again, Declan spoke last week with the importance for James Talbot to get a clean sheet. They'd have been looking for one again tonight. I think again, James Talbot isn't quite back to his best. He did miss 7 months of football with his injury last year, which cost him a season, cost him his place in the Ireland squad. He is still catching up. So Bohs probably a little bit of work to do defensively if they're can't keep a clean sheet at home to DCD. But again, they have gone over the line when others have slipped up. Shamrock Rovers slipped up. Derry slipped up. Bohs got the win they needed. But again, I think a little bit of tinkering over the international break. Everybody said a lot of players who come in from abroad, players who moved players are signed quickly before the season started, give players a chance, a bit of a break, 2 days off, chance to go home and see their families. 2 Polish players, there's a few players from the UK, give them a bit of a break, recharge, and be stronger when they come back. A couple of big games when they come back, especially that derby at home to Shamrock Rovers.
Yeah, yeah. And as for Rovers, I mean, we'll get to them in a minute. We talked in the previous show about the pressure on Tim Clancy at Pats, and I mean, coming back from behind twice in Tala it's a good sign in a way for players seemingly fighting for the manager. It's the sort of game that if you go behind twice, particularly to the goal of as good a goal as Jack Bourne scored, it's the sort of game where Pats could have gone under, but they fought and got themselves back. So it's a good result, maybe something to build on.
It was, and a different team as well. I made a couple of changes. Again, we spoke before the game about the goalkeeper. So Odomosu dropped out in line as the new goalkeeper came in. There was quite a lot of changes. I was quite critical speaking before the game of Owen Doyle and Jake Mulroney. I really haven't been impressed with Jake Mulroney's game so far for Pats. I do think he's an exceptional player. He's played at a high level in Scotland and the US. I hadn't seen him do it for St. Pat's any time I'd seen him. He was just unconvincing. He just didn't look to have conviction or confidence about him scoring that goal tonight will do him a lot of good. So I think the fact that Clancy was able to change it, freshen it up a bit, get a bit of response from players, and the players who were left out tonight, that's a message to them as well. So again, they missed, Jamie Lennon is a big presence for us in Pats. He was missing tonight I think it's about learning lessons, the Pats can't have any complaints about the red card that Jamie Lennon got last week. So it's about learning from those mistakes. It's giving them a bit of breathing space. I would have feared for Pats and Tim Clancy if they had lost. I think they will see it as a big point for them. To try and come back from that, and for Mulroney in particular to get over the line with his goal, Owen Doyle to get a goal as well, to use that. But there's probably more questions for Shamrock Rovers. Again, wide open at the back. They conceded 2 again at home. They conceded a lot of goals at home in the last couple of games, and they have everyone back now. They don't really have excuses about suspensions or injuries. They have more or less their full defence available. Lee Race didn't start; he came on. There is just something about Shamrock Rovers defensively that isn't strong at the moment. I suppose the advantage is they didn't lose, but Shamrock Rovers, they really are running out of games already. That gap behind Bohemians, never mind Derry City or Dundalk, but they did not expect to be 10 points behind Bohemians this early in the season. So there's a lot of work to do there, Shamrock Rovers. It's all very well Jack Bourne scoring a world-class goal like he did tonight, but if they're as open at the back as they were at home to St. Pat's, it's still quite worrying signs.
Yeah, it must be something they're starting to get concerned about. Just looking like the conceded equalisers after the 88th minute against Sligo, Drogheda, and now Pats. They did get one back themselves against Cork, but it's the sort of thing that's starting to get concerning. It must be starting to get concerning with Stephen Bradley, even if they're not saying it publicly.
No, and they had a habit last year of the other way, scoring late goals, a lot of equalisers, a lot of that was a strength. And when other people make fun of that, Stephen Bradley said, "Well, I don't care." The whole thing about no matter where you get the goal from, it's 85th minute. It's Pico Lopez in the 85th minute. If you can get that goal to win you a game, Shamrock Rovers got over the line. They won the league comfortably last season, but a lot of games there were very fine margins without those late goals. Rory Gaffney, a lot of players popped up with them. It was just that knack that they had. People put it down to superior fit. 2 things: their bench. They had players to bring off the bench, and also superior fitness when they were further ahead in terms of being full time than a lot of the teams they were up against last season. But just their openness is a concern. I don't know how they can work on that. In fairness to Stephen Bradley, when they were having that poor run at the start, he didn't blame the suspensions or the injury. He said, "Look, we have experienced players. Okay, we're missing players in defence because of all those red cards they had earlier on." But Bradley did say, "Well, the players coming in, Gary O'Neill, he's not a defender. He has been asked to come in, play in defence, but he's an experienced player. He's won leagues. These are veteran players who should know the game." And I think that they do need to go back to basics a bit and find that way. There's probably going to be more questions about Alan Manus again. Rovers don't really have a goalkeeper who can put pressure on Alan Manus, so a little bit to work on there. But they're in danger of being left behind. And the games they have to come, Dundalk and Bohemians, they're huge tests for Shamrock Rovers. And if they come out of those 2 games with 2 points or even less, it's going to look grim in terms of whatever retaining the title, but getting back into the top 3. It'll take a huge effort to get back into the top 3.
Mm-hmm. And one team certainly we don't have a problem around conceding goals. Shelbourne, a good 2-0 win down in Cork. I think I'm right in saying they've only got 4 goals in 6 games, but they're solid, hard to break down, and they'll be very, very happy going into the international break with that result.
They haven't scored many, but they haven't conceded many either. An awful lot of clean sheets. Again, I spoke before the game about Conor Kearns and the concern, in terms of Paddy Barrett. It was feared that he was going to be a big loss if he was out, because he's a real presence. A lot of young players in that Shelbourne team, and they need somebody like Paddy Barrett to give them, that bit of steel at the back. Obviously, Luke Bourne has been a stalwart for a couple of years, but to have that veteran, experienced head at the back like Paddy Barrett who's had an injury. So again, the break is coming at a good time for Shelbourne to try and get him back. Shane Farrell going off early in the last game, but that's what they can build on. I think that is definitely huge 3 points for Shelbourne, and I think their ambition would have been kind of improving last year if possible. They're nudging at the top four. I don't think they'll be able to stay there. I don't think they've a squad big enough to stay there, depending on what work they can do in the summer. But those clean sheets, Derry City and Shamrock Rovers were crying out for the clean sheets, and Pats as well will be crying out for the clean sheets that Shelbourne have got. And that's probably a lot of focus on Damien Duff in terms of his impact, but I think he relies an awful lot on Joey O'Brien, who seems to have that coaching background to give them that. How do you coach a team to go and do that, to go to Cork, not just to win, but win with a clean sheet?
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of that credit goes down to not just to Damien Duff. Damien Duff gets the headlines of the attention, but particularly his staff, especially Joey O'Brien. I think that's where a lot of that comes from. What Joey O'Brien would have seen at Shamrock Rovers in his time there, in his time in England, instilled that in Shelbourne, and that meanness, not giving anything away. I said they're not, Shelbourne and probably never going to be brilliant to watch until this team develops a bit and Duff can put a bit more of a stamp on it and sign the players he really, really wants, rather than the budgetary limitations he has at the moment. But very, very strong defence, and Conor Kearns just flying on the clean sheets. I think he's more clean sheets than anybody in the league at the moment.
Mm-hmm. And that's been great. Thanks very much for joining us in the Independent from a very picturesque Brandywell there behind you. Safe travels home, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Thanks, Ed.